Welcome back to the podcast, everybody, the Barbells and Trails Podcast. I'm your host, Bret, and this is Riley, and we are here yet again, episode 87.
Oh my gosh.
So, what are we going to talk about today?
Okay.
You don't like it?
I can't do the whole episode with that.
Oh, no?
Accent, no.
I wasn't planning on it.
Okay, good, because I'm going to be laughing the entire time then.
Eventually. If my grandpa... Okay, so I know this is a weird tangent, but I got a cowboy hat when I was down in...
You show me?
In Texas. What? Florida.
Mm-hmm.
If I get that...
Texas now. What? The fuck?
If I get that back, because I don't know if they remembered to bring it home from Florida, which is kind of depressing.
Cowboy episode. We're doing it.
Exactly. We just dress up as cowboys.
Talk about horses and cows.
Yeah.
And...
Should we do it? Should we do it while we have Hope on?
Hey, why
That'd
not?
be hilarious.
Yeah,
but we don't tell her.
We just show up in
full get up. That'd be amazing.
Oh
we got to do that now.
Oh,
Hopefully she doesn't watch this.
She might.
Uh-oh.
She watched last week's.
Just tell her to skip the first 5 minutes. No, she'll watch it if we say that. Never mind.
Yeah, then she will watch it.
So, how's it going, everybody? How's it going, Riley?
It's going great, dude.
I don't know why I'm talking to you like this.
I don't know. You never do.
Yeah, no, this is kind of weird. So, this was... okay, so this is something I wanted to talk about this week. Just because it was an interesting topic of discussion. But I listened to a podcast this week where Rogan had a guy that was discussing the moon landing.
Oh, okay.
Well, we'll just go off of this. Do you believe the moon landing was real?
Okay. I was not expecting this, but like I do, but then I also don't. Like I don't know. It could have been fake this entire time.
I mean, that's what that guy says. He says he says it is probably the largest government psyop in American history.
Like, I don't know if it was fake back then. I know that we can go to the moon whenever we want now, 100%. But I just like back then, I really don't know.
So, it was interesting because, like, I mean, obviously I've heard that conspiracy plenty, but it never really thought about. Like, I never thought about it. But then at the same time, it is like there are circumstances around the topic that are very intriguing to be like, why haven't we been back? Why don't we do this? Why did like how did we do it in 1969 so quickly within 10 years? But like since then we've had to like our aerospace technology has not advanced quite like everything else has, and just like little random stuff. It just
depends, I think. I mean, maybe it's a thing with money too. And
it might be. There was definitely a lot of money and a lot of manpower put into the NASA program in the 60s, 100%. But it is still very interesting because it's... But, I mean, you could say the same thing about, like, the Manhattan Project. Like, that was something where at the time when it happened within, like, a year and a half to 2 years. By the way, we have to watch Oppenheimer. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either, dude.
Actually, we need to watch that. We really do.
We're terrible.
We are. Kelvin's told me about it, and he's like, I loved it. I'm like, I probably would.
Like it.
I probably would. But like with something like that was something that was also pumped full of money, a lot of resources, a lot of manpower. Like at the time for the whole process and the project, I think they had just for the Manhattan Project over 100,000+ people nationwide working on stuff between manufacturing, like the whole thing. And at one point in the height of the space race, there was technically 400,000 people working in that industry. Yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of manpower, a lot of money, and supposed to be some of the best technology. But I'll just point out some of the main things that the guy brought up. But it was kind of interesting. And Rogan was kind of playing devil's advocate hard, and the guy didn't quite like it. But he's like, I got to. Like, I mean, I got to try being reasonable and bring in another perspective. And he even talked to the guy of being like, hey, I would love to set up an interview, or not an interview, but have someone else come on and debate you and actually see. He's like, have you ever actually been sat down with somebody and had a debate about it? And he's like, no, not really. Like, no one's like wanted to, from that community, wanted to talk about it.
That would be interesting.
And so like one of the things he talked about, which is one of the first things, if you look into it, that will get thrown out is, I think it's the or what is it? The Van Halen radiation belt. I might have pronounced that wrong.
I have no idea.
But supposedly there is basically a point in space between us and the moon, basically at the edge of our, I believe it's the magnetic field around the Earth, that supposedly kind of builds up radiation, and the radiation is very, very high. And one of the things he says is that people recently, even like aerospace scientists, have said that we have difficulty now getting through the radiation belt when it comes to technology and even possibly people. And so he's like, that alone throws a lot of like, if you think about it. That one I think is still very like not sure, but it is very interesting because he did talk about, and I have a feeling there has to be something else involved in it. But like one of the things he brought up was that at the time, some of the shielding that they were using was only a quarter or a half inch aluminum with other stuff as well. But I'm like, I feel like for something like a rocket or a spacecraft like that, it had to be thicker. But he basically said that something like that would give you almost half the radiation protection as the lead vest you get at the dentist.
Yeah, I don't know. That is weird.
So
because, I mean, there's 3 different parts of a rocket.
At least there
I mean,
can be
like
multiple.
there's the fucking rocket.
Yeah, basically
and then
what
the
gets you out of
landing,
space,
and then coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything, so I don't know.
And then he what else did he talk about? He pulled up some footage of like when supposedly they were like filming, and supposedly at the time, or what was happening was supposed to be recording when they were halfway to the moon, and they had the camera supposedly next to the window, all this stuff. But if you wait on a longer back take of it, you see lights come up, you see that there's people in between the camera and the window and all this, and he thinks that was staged. And he's also a film producer, so he brought that perspective in on some things, so that was kind of interesting. There's even photos, like apparently there is not technically a single photo of Buzz Aldrin, or no, sorry, not Buzz Aldrin, Armstrong actually standing on the moon. There's not an actual photo of him on it.
Just the voice recording.
There's some recordings, but there's no actual like still photo of him, which is kind of weird.
There's that video though, right?
Mm-hmm. And
I don't even remember if I've seen that video, to be honest.
Yeah. And so there's just like a few things. He says that it was staged and filmed on like a military base, and
I mean, I've seen both sides.
Yeah, like that. I mean, I think a lot of people at least have heard or kind of seen something about the conspiracy of it, but breaks that down, and how the man that was initially, which this is true, that the guy that was initially supposed to be the astronaut that was going to be the first man on the moon died, and he said he's interviewed his wife, and that she thinks the CIA killed him, and basically along the lines of they had told him that they were going to have to stage it, all this stuff, and he could not bring himself to lie to the American people and the world about something like that. And because he was kind of going to blow the whistle on it, they think, or they say, that he was basically whacked and it was an accident, but that the CIA had messed with instruments when they were doing a field test and basically caused it to cause an accident.
I actually watched like a video. I remember this, like in that video of him one step of a man and all that. You can see his footprints, but then they had in displays like the actual shoes, or what's it called? It's called something, boots.
Yeah. I
mean, moon boots.
I mean, I guess.
But I guess the treads did not line up. Like they looked totally different. And I mean, anybody could fake that, though. I mean, it could possibly be like fucking a whole different group of people.
Yeah.
Shoes.
And between that and then like, what was some of the other things he pointed out? So there was that. that there's been some deathbed confessions of a guy that was apparently a military or security at this base that supposedly confessed that he murdered somebody in the 60s, and basically because they were in on it, and along the lines of this dude was gonna basically blow the whistle on it, and he took him out. And some stuff like weird things along those lines. He actually said at one point he's had death threats, people not want to use his footage that he's been able to get his hands on and actually purchase and get a hold of, because it does prove it. And he's even said that some people have said, even if it is fake, even if it's true that it was faked, I'm still going to say we did it. And like stuff like that. He's heard people say that. Just a lot of random stuff. It is very interesting.
I can honestly see them faking it because, I mean, it was a race. It was a race to whoever can get on the moon first.
And then something else he states is that supposedly Russia and China knew that we faked it at one point or another. And they kind of, supposedly China blackmails the U.S. to keep the lid shut on that, and in relation to us giving them some technologies of certain things when it comes to aerospace science, or I think, or something. And he mentioned stuff like that. So he mentioned like weird filming. He mentioned that at one point you hear on one of the audio tapes that's not normally shown, or like wasn't publicly shown at the time, that there was a third audio channel with the CIA that was talking between Houston and the astronauts. Supposedly he thinks they did go to space, but they didn't go to the moon. So he thinks that they did record some of the stuff, but they were maybe only 200 miles in orbit. And
no.
And then they staged other parts here. Like it was like a 2-part thing. And stuff like that. So it's just
back then though, editing.
I mean, it's possible. There was a lot of photos that have been kind of messed with in the past that were definitely false. But
editing a whole video.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in one video.
It's not as simple as today by any means, but it is very interesting, the stuff he stated, but it's still kind of like, is it like it is very
honestly. Yeah. I think we'll just never know unless
exactly
literally somebody from the inside opens up and says, "Yeah, we staged it."
Like, but he thinks that if something like that happened, it would basically cause a collapse of the government, because it would be like the biggest cover up in human history.
Not just the government, with the citizens too, because I feel like
that's why. Because
I feel like
civilian
everybody
outrage.
Would be like, well, if that's something they haven't told us.
What else are they lying about?
Exactly.
Like at this point, like at that point, would it be like, okay, like how truthful is it? Was JFK killed by the CIA? Was it like what? Like this is something when he had Tucker Carlson on that was actually interesting, that I believe is Richard Nixon that they were talking about, that kind of got pulled out of office in a really funky way, where it basically was almost a coup. Like the guy that caused Watergate apparently worked for the Naval Intelligence Agency and became a reporter, and then all of a sudden had the biggest basically news story in history, and he was working with one of the number 2 people in the CIA at the time to get information. So they think that some of the stuff was done purposefully to basically get Nixon out of office and a bunch of other stuff. So it's like, if they do something like that, would they be willing to do something as big as fake the moon landing?
I mean, there's definitely just a lot of shady shit.
And if you do look at the footage, some of it does look funky. Like you can't deny it. And
I mean, fucking though, like I wasn't born back then, so I don't know what they honestly everything fucking looked like.
Yeah, exactly. And even Rogan, like he doesn't like not believe that we went to the moon, but he's like, I mean, you can't deny that some footage of certain things 100%. Definitely look weird.
I mean, just looking. I mean, going back to the JFK and stuff, like, yeah, I can see like the government hiding some shit from us. Like, cause I mean, fuck, I've seen some just like not documentaries, but like YouTube videos, kind of documentaries, like about 9/11.
Yeah,
and that shit was like, I mean, there was fucking people that like was building fucking skyscrapers. Like, buildings don't just fall fucking from the ground up.
Yeah, that one
gets hit from the side.
So that one I don't think.
Shit, yeah.
When it comes to that, I guess we're just kind of on a conspiracy theory rabbit hole today. I don't think that one was necessarily faked. I think because I've listened to some people that's done some like in-depth research.
Of course, it wasn't fucking fake.
Or not fake, sorry, but like I don't think that this was like a government thing that they actually did it. I think for what information I've heard, it was something along the lines of, in all reality, I think it was an FBI CIA fuck up, and that was why they kept so much stuff secret.
I think, I mean, of course, I do think we get terror attacked.
Yeah,
but I think fucking they planted a bomb like at the bottom too, or something shit. Like, cause like fucking, I mean, it didn't technically explode from the bottom, but fucking it just collapsed. And I feel like something not like inside from the government, but somebody from the inside of that building.
Well, I don't know about that one. Some at least some of the big conspiracies that some people have said is not necessarily the towers, but even some of the other buildings that collapsed. That's some of the ones where they're like, that didn't quite make sense. As for the towers, I think that one was all natural. I mean, you got a plane that hit 20 plus stories low, and if you get structural integrity damage that much in a place like that, and you start burning jet fuel so hot that steel starts to melt or bend, if the top quarter of the building falls down on the other section and that structural integrity happens, the rest could just collapse. I mean, like, recently, think about the bridge in Baltimore. That didn't seem like something that would have possibly caused something like that, but
fucking, I was hearing like some theories like,
yeah,
oh fuck, that was staged too. Like fucking people did that. People said that. I was like, what in the fuck? Because people, it was like that bolt that like barely stopped. But fucking, I think like they had a generator.
Mm-hmm. They lost power.
They lost power, but the generator kicked on. But I mean, a generator's not gonna power a whole fucking pole.
And the thing is, with something like that, it's like, I don't think people also understand when it comes to engineering and stuff. Like, in certain instances, if one thing goes out, the whole thing could collapse.
100%, yeah.
So I think that's very similar when it comes to the 9/11 thing. The most information I got on that, where it's like, I think why so much stuff was kind of kept secret about 9/11 in particular, is some people think that the CIA and FBI at the time didn't work close together. It was almost like, you're a different team. We're not sharing information with you, whatever. Even though they both work for the U.S. government, they're both intelligence agencies. Because even like back in the day, even police departments didn't share information. That's one reason why back in the 80s, certain serial killers got away with so much, because things weren't as easily, or not even. I mean, obviously it was more difficult to share information, but they wouldn't collaborate much.
It was more of a competition back then.
Yes, and some people say that both sides, FBI and CIA, knew that something was going down, knew that people were in the country, knew that these people were in Florida, knew certain things, and that if they probably actually worked together, they probably could have seen something like this coming. I mean, and they could have possibly prevented it. I can see that. And stuff like that. But yeah, it's just, it is interesting. The moon landing thing, it is very interesting. I'll be very curious if he does come back on and he gets somebody to debate, because that would be really cool.
That would be cool.
It was pretty interesting, because I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Graham Hancock was on Rogan again, and he actually was on with a
I think I've seen that title. I never saw it.
I'm blanking on the guy's name, but basically he what is that called? The study of human history and civilizations. What archaeologist.
Okay, I'm gonna go totally different.
So he had somebody come on and debate him, and there was definitely things that he threw out where I'm like, there are definitely some things that he's saying that.
So they did debate.
Yeah, and there were some things that he brought up where I'm like, that is pretty interesting, but then at the same time, it doesn't also disprove his theory.
Graham?
No, yeah, the guy that came on to debate.
Or the guy debating him.
Yeah, the guy debating him brought in some information where it was like, okay, you're bringing up some valid points, but even then, I don't think, and at one point, that's kind of part of the conclusion they came to, and even Graham tried stating, he's like, it's not that I'm saying the science that you guys have is false, or what you guys do isn't important, or whatever, but he was basically presenting the side of there's still so much we don't know, and so much we haven't studied. Is this a
possibility?
And that we just still haven't found evidence of this being possible, and it could be. And the thing is, we haven't had enough substantial evidence to either prove or disprove.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much shit we don't know.
Because like at one point he was talking about how, which I mean could be a valid statement, but like how they can take core samples and basically measure the amount of lead in ice of like the polar caps to see like if there was industrial stuff going on. Basically, you can see depending on how they say it. He said that depending on core samples, lead amounts on specific years, you can actually see when society started to industrialize because of more metallurgy being involved. Smelting metal, all that stuff caused things to go up in the atmosphere that naturally wouldn't have been there just normally. And basically you can see the human impact on the environment through that. And he says that there's no proof of something like that showing up in the geological evidence of an advanced civilization. But even when Graham talks, he's like, I'm not saying that these people had cars. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying that they were a lot more advanced than we realized. They were smarter than we realized. And there was possibly a large civilization that was lost. I'm not saying that they were futuristic and had flying automobiles.
Right.
Or like, he's like, I'm not saying that, but I think there could have definitely been lost technologies, lost history, lost civilization.
Yeah. I
think that's
honestly,
still very possible.
I honestly believe that.
Yeah. Like he even said, like, when it comes to certain things, there has still been only maybe 10 to 2% of certain areas that have been really studied and researched. And that time is the biggest, like, destroyer when it comes to evidence for things. I mean, even if the human civilization just disappeared, every human being was gone. If you come back 100, or not even 100,000 years later, but you come back 10, 15,000 years later, not saying you couldn't find evidence, but it would not be easy to discover evidence of society. Like you wouldn't necessarily find skyscrapers or stuff like that. A lot of that would fall apart within hundreds of years without maintenance.
Oh, you said 15,000?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be just fucking a few walls, and that would be fucking it.
And even then, I mean, think about it. Like, one of the reasons why certain monuments have been around as long as they have for thousands of years is because they were made of stone. If you look at the main things we use today, metal, wood, all this would disappear. Like, if you go to Detroit in 20 years, in some of those neighborhoods, you got trees growing up into
I mean, there would definitely
buildings.
be still buildings, because there's still buildings that's made out of steel.
Where?
Fucking in cities and shit, dude.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that's short term. I'm saying, like, if you're looking at thousands of years, like that, I mean, it would rust away.
It would rust away, but I think they'd still be there.
It'd be, what's a right term? Because I have watched a video of someone breaking this down. It wasn't even about like Graham Hancock stuff. It was just they were like, what would happen? What would the Earth look like if humans disappeared, and would there be evidence over a long period of time? Because they were using that as part of the discussion of would we be able to possibly find a lost alien civilization, let's say on Mars, if it's been however many thousands of years, would we even be able to necessarily find evidence of something being there? And they're like, in certain cases, let's say the future, if we are a star-bearing planet, there could literally be planets we could go to that at one point could have had a thriving civilization of some other entity, and we would never be able to know, possibly. Yeah. If enough time passes, you just can't really find that, because eventually things degrade. They just end up back in the soil. Things just go away and stuff. So it's an interesting topic of discussion.
That would be interesting.
I
mean, I'm trying to look on the side. I'm like, I think there would be, but 15,000 years is
I mean,
a lot of years.
It is.
So
it is. I mean, even 4,500 years for, let's say, the pyramid and everything. I mean, it doesn't look near what it used to, but it's mainly because it's stone that it stayed. And even, let's say, if it was in a different climate at now, like let's say 1,000 years later from now, climates have kind of swapped areas again, and maybe this savanna is a jungle again, because it has been. And if you have a lot of water erosion even on those stones, eventually over time you might see a giant mound of rock, but it could just look like a hill. Even the ones in like some of the ones they find now in Guatemala, or some of the stuff they find in Brazil and in the Amazon, like you would have no idea they're there because they're overgrown. Like you can't see anything, and even if you walk up it, you would think you're just walking up a hill.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until they did more research to be like, this doesn't seem natural, and then they started realizing, oh, this might actually be a structure, and that's how they discovered what I think technically is, based on just square footage, the largest pyramid in the world in the Guatemalan jungle. Yeah. It's not as tall as the pyramids of Giza, but it is massive.
Yeah.
Like, Yes Theory did a video on that one, and that one was really cool. But if you are interested in the video when it comes to like what would there be evidence of people, I'll show you later.
It's fucking. I'm just trying to think like cars too, like fucking. I wonder what car.
I mean, think about it. I mean, there's cars that have sit for the past 50 years, and I mean that's only 50 years, and they're falling apart, sinking into the ground, rusted, flat. Like,
I mean, it just depends how I guess you store them.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you just left it in the elements and you just left a car for 100 years, I mean, not saying you won't still see a car, but it's not going to be the same, and the integrity of it's going to be gone.
10,000 years. I don't think so, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, there might be rims.
I mean, like,
if that.
And obviously, like, Pompeii is a different story, but we didn't even know the city of Pompeii was actually real until the 1800s because it was buried, and it was talked about in historical record, but people were like, what's there's no evidence of any city, and then eventually it was kind of came across, and they're like, oh wait,
and they
like
fucking found bodies and shit, dude. It was insane.
And so, but it's what is that? It's Koksart. It's a German channel. They do some amazing stuff. They like work with scientists to like break down theories. Their videos are really in depth and cool. Yeah, there's just a lot. So his conversation with Graham was pretty interesting, but it was still like basically inconclusive. Like, obviously,
I mean, of course, yeah.
But it was still it was still interested. At one point, it did get a little more heated than I expected.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, like there was definitely some tension, and you're like, you could tell Rogan like was trying to be a mediator at one point because he's like, like he's at one point.
Okay, let's listen to his side first.
A little bit,
and then let's hear your side. But
and even at one point, like, I think he even said it was like, hey, like let's go take a piss break. Like let's.
Oh, did he say that?
Kind of come.
It got
back.
that heated.
A little bit, like it was. You could feel it just listening to the conversation.
I guess I can see it because Graham,
especially with Graham's personality.
Yeah, I was gonna say Graham, like he's so into his like actual theory that I can see that he gets so deep into it. Like, but of course he does look both ways.
Yes,
that's what I do like about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's like, I don't at all understate the importance of archaeology. He's like, what you guys do is very important, and I don't think that the science and studies you guys have done is false at all. It's just, I think that there's still a possibility that we could be missing something.
I think there is. I mean, we're missing something every day, dude.
Yeah. I mean, even when it comes to, like, we're talking about, like, structures being hidden. First episode of Apocalypse, or Ancient Apocalypse, the one in the Philippines. No idea that was there. They thought it was volcanic, like rock, which there are some weird volcanic rock structures. I mean, have you ever seen the ones, I think it's in England, where it's almost like hexagonal, like rocks that basically look like pillars, but it's literally just like volcanic rock. Doesn't look natural, but it completely is. Yeah. So that's kind of what that got wrote off to. And then they're like, wait a second, like there might be something more to this.
Fucking, and then I think there's the third episode. It's fucking, it looked like a huge hill. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, the one in Mexico.
Was it Mexico?
Yeah,
I knew it was on an
island.
And
there's like the church, or maybe you're talking about a different one, but
oh yeah, I was talking about
where it's like at one point there was like a big Spanish cathedral that was put on it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
They didn't even realize it until they like was doing some construction, and they found a tunnel, and they were like, what is this doing here? And it turns out that there's been pyramid built on pyramid built on pyramid,
and that fucking church.
And then eventually they didn't know it was a pyramid, and they just built a church on a hill.
Insane, dude.
In their eyes. In all reality, it's a very large pyramid.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So evidence for something like that is a lot harder than I think some people realize. That's why it's like you if you want, you don't have to believe in Graham Hancock's theory at all.
Right.
But
I do
there's
encourage
still
you to
room
just
for
watch
speculation.
It,
Just
watch his documentary.
yeah.
Just because it's actually very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
And it is very impressive, even when he just talks about like the astrology and how he thinks some of this is wrapped into it. And it's like there is something to that would make sense. Like it doesn't seem far-fetched, because I think we do have a disconnect in our society to the stars. But even if you look at like the Mayan culture, they were very much attached to understanding the stars and astrology. And it wouldn't surprise me if other civilizations of the past did the same. And even when he talks about the buildings and how they line up and follow certain stars and constellations, and that's one reason why he thinks some things like the Great Sphinx dates back way later than they expected, could make sense, because it looks like there's water erosion in the area, which would have put it a lot older. And then let alone the disproportion between the head of the Sphinx and the body of the lion. Like, what if it was initially a lion and it was pointed right towards the constellation of Leo? That also dates it back 12,000 years. Like there's a lot of different like little things along those lines that are very interesting. Yeah, conspiracies are fun. I never take it too seriously. It doesn't matter what it is, because it's like a lot of it is speculation. I just find it interesting.
Oh,
like,
I do
even
too.
the moon thing. It's like I couldn't tell you yes or no.
Literally, like who would know?
Yeah, like.
I mean, I'm just talking about like
small.
Nowadays,
yeah,
there's nobody from back then that's.
Oh, there's people that are alive, but still, like not many. Like not many.
Actually, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's even interesting, and it's kind of the same thing.
I don't even know one person that would be.
Like some of the files for JFK weren't supposed to be released for like 70 years, and some of that is kind of like, oh, so you guys were waiting for anybody possibly involved to be dead, so there's no real backlash to it. And it's even kind of funky when you look at some of the investigations when it comes to COVID and information on that. Some of the documentation and some things like that aren't supposed to be released to the public for another 70 years. And it's like,
and we can go fucking all the way back to the newest president.
It's like there's something.
There's always something.
There's something there that there's a reason why they're just not making it public, even though they probably should. Like I in certain
honestly,
aspects,
I think that was kind of tied in with the president getting elected, the elections.
Well,
because I think
it was a lot. It was a lot. Things.
But I think COVID actually was like there just to like get everybody's mind off. Like, I mean, I do think it's rigged. I do think it was.
I don't know. It's.
I mean,
okay. And then like the COVID thing, I think the logic.
What honestly drew the line for me was the fucking voting in Florida, and fucking never happened once in the entire like lifetime. Like, and Trump was winning by like a huge margin, and then overnight, fucking something happened and Biden won. And that's what drew the line. I was like, that's not no, because it was like A to B does not equal C. That does not make sense.
I mean, I think there is something when it comes to election fraud, is that you can't say it doesn't exist, because there's always been tampering, and some companies have improved that voting machines can be hacked. So it's like there's always been some form of it. Even in elections 100 years ago, there was 100% something going on. At one point, it was proven that people were basically voting back in the day using people that were dead, and using their vote to try to count, like tallying up towards even a mayor or governor. Like there's always been some.
A lot of people think
like
that's actually not that big of a deal, but fuck, just think.
For the president of the United
every
States,
person had 3 votes. That adds up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean it definitely does. It seems very minuscule, but it's like something can be done. I think with some of the stuff with COVID, I feel like part of it is because I think some of the logical reason as to why they might not want some information to come out. I think at this point it's very apparent, at least if you know some information about it. The U.S. was funding research on those diseases and those viruses in China, And I think it's something along the lines of it could simply be they don't want to necessarily show that the U.S. government or other governments in general, even possibly China, were partially responsible for this. I think that's part of it. I think it's like they don't want to cause blame on them, so they're just like, we just won't show the information yet. And it could be as simple as that. Because, I mean, at this point, it's very well known that it 100% came from the lab. And it could have been as simple as, I mean, it might have not even necessarily been that big a deal, but it was, that kind of research was supposed to be stopped. And then it got what's the word? I guess allowed, but I can't remember who, with what presidency or when.
It just got like restarted back up.
There was a point in time, I think almost 15 years ago, that gain of function research got kind of shut down because they're like, this could be very dangerous when it comes to doing this stuff. That could there still be some benefits to society about this, but at the same time, is it worth the risk?
Right.
And some people at the time said no, then it got allowed again, and that could have kind of been the precipice for what caused COVID. Like that being like, so there's it's none of these situations are ever as simple as who did it. What, like it's always super complicated and complex. It's not black and white. And that's why, like, even now with stuff with like Palestine and Israel, and you see the protests, and like now Columbia University might be expelling students because they basically kind of what happened in Portland? Basically, students and protesters took control of a building, and they're like, you need to. Like, there's a difference between protest and doing something like this, and if you don't stop, we will just expel you from the school. Like, we'll kick you out. And
what were they protesting?
The war in Palestine.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yep. And it's like, I can't say that the things that are happening there I'm okay with, but at the same time, I think there is something to it. And even Rogan has like an optimistical feel about it, but he's had people talking about it and that knows a lot more information even than him or myself. He's like, this is also the first time, like, what, I can't remember who it was, but the guy was breaking it down. He's like, this is the first time we've ever actually had an army or some militant force that is purposefully using the strategy of civilians to try surviving and literally building bases, fortifications, tunnels in civilian areas, trying to detour, or not detour, but that's not the right word. Basically trying to thinking that it will limit attacks on them because they're going to use civilians as their human shields, pretty much. Like they're almost they almost built in a war of hostage. And it's one of the first, it probably is the first instance in history, something that extreme, let alone with the technology and everything. And then when you think about it, it's like, I didn't totally know the extent of things that happened on October, what was it? 7th, 11th? Whenever it happened? The terrorist attack? I know the date, I'm blanking.
I honestly don't remember.
It's like 1,200 people died. And the thing is, it was indiscriminate. And then not only that, you find out later on that it was actually the town that got attacked was actually a very like left-leaning, almost hippie movement of people that were like very positive towards Palestine and Gaza. And they were the ones that lived closest to Gaza, and they were the ones that got attacked. They didn't have weapons. They couldn't defend themselves. People got slaughtered, men, children, women.
Yeah.
People got assaulted. Like there was a lot. And so it's like, you can't say that doesn't initiate a terrible response. Like 9/11 was bad, but imagine if someone just invaded the U.S. and did something like that. Because technically the death toll was about the same as 9/11, but imagine if someone did something even not only killing, but did something also that astronomical when it comes to how ruthless it was. Like in the sense of non-discriminately killing someone. And it's like, if something like that happened on U.S. soil, you can't say we wouldn't respond with utmost aggression.
Oh, 100%. I'm
not saying
think about what happened in Florida, what started, the whole war, and bringing us in.
Florida. Wait, where are you talking about?
I'm just saying World War II.
Oh, that was Hawaii.
What? Oh, yeah, you're
That's
right.
what I was like. But yeah.
Oh, oopsies.
No, you're
Now,
good.
over there.
Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
Over there, dude. Something over
Yes,
there.
Exactly. It's like they did something to initiate. There's never not civilian casualties, and supposedly, I guess, and even more recent wars in the Middle East, supposedly the ratio of hostile casualties and civilian casualties is actually better than when we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, which still isn't great because there's still a lot of civilian deaths. But it is something to be said that it's still it's such a dicey situation that I don't know if some random college student in New York can just be like, hey, like, you guys are completely wrong. These people are fine. Like, it's not that simple. You're not over there. People over there live in a totality of they don't know. Like, they're like, what could happen? Like, literally, people there, like, they've met people people have met people from Israel, and they're like, you guys party like all the time. You have fun. You're have so much energy, and someone has literally told them, like, yeah, the reason we do that is because we don't necessarily know what could happen in the next day. I mean, terrorist attack, bombing.
Sad. It's very sad.
Like, some rocket. So we live life to the fullest because you never know what's going to happen. And I think that's one reason why some people in the United States don't live life to the fullest, because it's not like there's an what's the word?
I don't know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I know. Like, just a threat that's just there that you never know.
Oh,
like,
I see what you mean.
Like, obviously, you live life day to day. You don't know what could happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You
You never know if you're going to survive tomorrow.
But it's not the same as, like, there is a threat very close by that you don't know when or possibly if your city or town could be attacked.
We live very comfortable.
Yes, in comparison. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to wrap their minds around that other places aren't that well off. And
it's very crazy.
And some very messed up things happen. And that is life for some people. And they got to deal with it. Like, I was listening to someone else talk how they visited Ukraine, and that, like, at one point, like, life is kind of normal there. It's weird. But, like,
it depends where you're at.
Well, true. But, like, on the east side and Kyiv and things, like, people still live a day-to-day life. They go to their job.
They do live in panic, though. Like, they know fucking 100, 200 miles north of them fucking getting
I think
bombed.
you'd be surprised, because with how he talked, he was like, we were supposed to drive this far, but at that point, the country was on a red alert, like, within the past month or two.
Okay.
And he's like, so I mean, it's a lot different now than, like, let's say the first month of the war, because at this point, some of those people have been living like this for 2 years. So
exactly.
Like,
so yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we literally got an app on our phone that you could literally watch missiles as they're getting launched into Ukraine and be like, oh, I got shot down. And initially they were supposed to drive to Kyiv or somewhere else, but they were like, oh, it's like an 8-hour drive. Right now the country's on a red alert for threat. We're not going to make that drive. So they were like, hey, tomorrow instead we're going to go to this mountain. It's only like an hour away. We're going to go skiing. And he's like, what? They're like, yeah, we're going to go skiing. You go up there, there's families, people are skiing, like, no, tomorrow. And they said at one point, because there was so many rocket attacks that day, a lot of people were checking their phone watching that, and you can literally see in real time as rockets get shot down, and literally people cheering as rockets are getting shot down, be like, yeah, like, and it's like, it seems so crazy to think about for us, because it's like imagine you're here and you're like, oh yeah, there's a rocket coming in from Canada. Oh, it just got shot down. We're good. Like, what? Like,
it's like,
but
it's like their 4th of July, dude.
I don't know if I'd say that.
That's terrible. No,
but it's like if you deal with that day to day, it doesn't have the same impact on you. Like, you, even though it's something you shouldn't have to get used to, you will adapt to it.
It's crazy how, like, different we live from everybody else. Because, like, Noah's been on mission trips. My mom has too, and just, like, seeing photos and videos, it's just, like, crazy. Like, wow, we live so much more different, because you get so comfortable of how you live in, and, like, you just feel like everybody lives, like, the same day as you, basically.
Yes, it's, if you don't actually try, and this is something I think me and Freddie and Kelvin at one point, maybe not together, but we kind of talked about, is like, if you don't actively try to get perspective of the outside world, you stay very tight knit. And I think that's, I think that's just human nature. I think it's gonna happen, and I think today, even though
it's just the human mind.
Yeah,
honestly.
like I mean, if you're living 100 years ago, you wouldn't concern yourself. You wouldn't think about it, and even if, let's say, your town was great, you'd have no idea that maybe 20 miles over a massacre just happened, and
Right.
you wouldn't know or care, or you know, like it
Right.
wouldn't be as a parent, where for other people it's like their day-to-day lives could be in danger, but they're used to it, and to them they're like, yeah, I mean, you never know. Rocket could hit, whatever. Like it's so weird, and to us we're like, this is not something you should be just
I mean,
whatever about.
even like the little small details. Like, I remember just going to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, we live in Indiana, so fucking 60 degrees feels like amazing to us.
Yeah, it's the
But
little
now we
things
go
that
to
you don't
Florida
realize.
and it's 65. We go to a store to get T-shirts, nothing but coats. Like, just like small little details.
Yeah, it
you're
doesn't
like-
even have to be extreme
Yeah.
stuff, but you don't figure out this perspective of other people and how they live their lives
Exactly.
if you don't actually try. And even then, like, why am I blanking on his name? Scott Harrison, the guy that started Charity Water. I don't think I have his book out here, but the charity we've talked about, and this would have been in the early 2000s, where it still would have been even less known. Like, obviously it's still modern era, but he didn't completely understand the water crisis in Africa and in all these places until he went there, and he was like, oh, like it's unfathomable that people live like this, because at one point, if you live a secluded life and you live in the city and you never have to think about it, it's never going to cross your mind that something so simple that can have such a major impact on somebody's life, well-being, health, future,
Yep. Like,
is lacking.
we're just so blessed, dude. We really are.
We
We're
are.
blessed.
We are. And I think some people just don't understand how blessed they are. I think people are very arrogant. I mean, like, even today, I just happened to see earlier, and this is just a way less severe comparison, but at the same time, this dad supposedly bought a brand new BMW outright for his daughter, and she was bitching about it because she wanted a Tesla. And he's like, I could not afford to buy you a Tesla, but you just got a car bought outright right here for you. And she was
plus,
complaining about it.
It was a free, and plus it was like a parent buying it. Like, it's not like she bought it.
Yeah. I was like, if my dad gave me a motor, like an e-bike, I would be ecstatic.
Exactly,
Like,
dude. If I got a scooter, I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, like, some people are just so arrogant and ungrateful for the things they have or what people do for them. And it gets so, for some people, it's just,
I mean, some of it is just like that's how they're grown. That's just
and
how
it
they've
is,
grown up.
but
And
it's sad to see something like that.
It's very sad.
And I don't think a lot of people are honestly grateful or understand how much gratitude they should have for the things they do have.
And I mean, we kind of talked about this before, but even going to college, I feel like even having experiences from other people like your age, literally coming straight out of high school, going to college, I bet just learning like how everybody else lives around the world. But that actually is like a huge like just realization.
Yeah. That the bad thing though that is sad is college isn't that like that as much anymore. Like, it is, I guess,
Honestly, I mean,
on
we
people,
both didn't go to college,
No.
so I honestly have no idea.
Well, just from conversations I had with people and other things, like, you do get perspectives from other people, but at the same time, like, back in the day, you went to college to almost become open-minded to more things, because let's say in the 80s, you came from a small town, you go to a college, you're getting people from all across the state, possibly all across the country, going to this major college. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to change your perspective, open your mindset. Nowadays, most colleges are very left-leaning. They might focus on specific ideologies, and if anything, you are getting less open-minded to
True.
things.
Okay, that's fair.
That's what
I feel like
I
it's
was
kind
getting
of high
at.
school too.
A little, but it's not as major because it's not shoved down your throat, and it's a lot smaller
That's
of a
fair
scale.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot to that people just aren't as self-aware as they should be at times, and that's why, like, his story was so interesting to me, because it's like his life completely changed when he saw that, and he wanted to do anything in his power to change people's lives. And because of that one man, he has literally helped provide millions of people with clean water around the world.
Good for him.
And it's just, I don't know, stuff like that is just so fascinating. And there's a lack of words to describe somebody like that.
I mean, people like that in my eyes, they're just heroes.
They are. Like,
they are.
They are an actual hero.
Yeah. And that's coming from a guy that lives in Indiana. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the fridge. Unlimited water. But he's my hero, dude.
Yes. It's amazing that there are people like that. And I think people do take that for granted, that they also don't see all the time the good that's also happening in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the issue today, is people are so wound up in the negative and pessimistic, and just, I mean, everything in the news, it was like, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's like, I stopped watching the news as a kid because I hated just seeing it on TV and them talking about 3 shootings on the west side of Indy and car accidents and people dying. News, and it's like, I don't
always feel like the news always go for the negative.
They do, because it's more sensational. And you can actually see a trend as to when that changed. And it was around the time I was born, as they realized. And it's the same thing on YouTube. The stuff that gets the most views, gets the most clicks, are typically the things that involve hate, controversy, things along those lines.
And that's just sad to me.
It is. And there's a reason for it. And it's not saying that I don't pay attention to that every once in a while, but it's still sad that that's what it's become. And it's just, because there is something along the lines of, it's almost human nature that we're intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So it does make we are almost fighting an uphill battle in that sense, because it's like, wait, what's going on? Like, I'll fight, let me watch that. Like, that's like, you know, like, oh, some lady got into a fight with a woman at Walmart. Like, cool. Like, even though that shouldn't be something should be happy to necessarily watch, it still piques your interest on like a basic like human nature, where you're just like, I kind of want to see that. You know,
it's like I've seen those like Black Friday videos.
Yeah, and you're like, people are crazy.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me, dude. Last Black Friday was so strange to me.
Why?
Because there was like no videos, because nobody
goes out anymore. No. That's part of it.
Yeah, it was fucking weird, dude.
People have died on Black Friday.
I know.
Do you know why it was called Black Friday initially? I think it was because, I think it was something along the lines that people literally got killed in like Ireland at one point.
I don't doubt it.
It's something crazy.
It's insane, dude.
And then somehow that just became the name. And okay, like, but yeah.
Oh, it's crazy, dude. The world is crazy.
Humans are wild. We really are.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you even see it. It's so funny, but like, you even see how every once in a while I bring it out in random people, like even COD, like the other day. Literally, a guy was complaining that I was almost being too nice because he wanted to be hateful to other people. And then I'm just over here. Like, even if people talk shit online and do stuff like in COD, I'm just like, cool. Like, what's up? Like, I actually like treat them like a human being and try having a conversation and just like mess with them.
Yeah, he'd be like, yeah, eat shit. Like, oh, fuck you. You're like, oh, thank you.
Or I'll be like, dude, that was a good shot. Like, nice. Like, you got me. Like, fair. Like, it's so funny because there's been so many times that I've literally, like, you could tell
you like humble
from
somebody.
My reaction that people are like,
you humbled them, dude.
I don't totally know how to respond, because they're so used to
so much
video games like that being so toxic that they expect you to come back and just start spatting shit. And like, literally, a guy 2 days ago or whenever it was, I was online playing with Mason, and like, I was just cool with the guy. I talked to him throughout the game. It was a good game, and I never really talked crap. But he's like, you're cool. Like, you're cool. He's like, I really want to scream at some teenagers. And, yeah, he's like, that's what I wanted. I'm like, not me. Sorry.
Oh my god.
And so I think there's a larger impact to even how you respond to other people than some people realize. That just your response can throw people off if they expect it to be negative or want it to go that way, that if you almost stay grounded and humble and don't let your own ego get involved, that it can completely change the situation and can lead to a lot less conflicts, either online or in person.
Oh yeah.
But I think there also is something to, like, even like, let's say Twitter, where you get some outrageous stuff said, is like people are also saying that because they're not in person. The likelihood of someone saying some of the things they say online, if they were face to face with that person,
they won't say
it's probably zero.
Cyberbullying.
Yeah, like it's just there's something to it that there's a disconnect because it doesn't feel like as real. You know what I mean? Like there's something to that in the cyberspace that, like, you know, like it's just not the same. But in all reality, it's still technically just two people communicating.
It is.
It's just a different form of communication.
It's the same thing as being on the phone.
It's just different, and it's not the same. And there's something to a one-on-one human connection that some people lose sight of. Yeah. And I think that's why I got into podcasts. I think that's why I like doing this with you guys. This is why I love just having conversations with friends. Like, there's times I don't ever plan on necessarily being at someone's house for as long as I am or something, but I'll just sit there and we'll talk for 2 hours. 2 hours. And it's like, it might have in some ways been a waste of time, but I could have been doing something. But at the same time, like, this was great. Like, I enjoy it. Like, it's nice to do that. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be a hustle and bustle. It doesn't have to always be whatever. Just sitting down and having a actual conversation is amazing, and I think more constructive than a lot of people realize.
I think the less we stress, the better life just goes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There is, I think that is like something when it comes to like Eastern philosophy and when it comes to like meditation and gurus and stuff along those lines. Like it's very much like that, and there is teachings to that. Like it is kind of crazy. If you do look into or read about like ancient meditation culture and how long it's been around, it's like some of this techniques and teachings have literally been around way longer than modern science, and they intertwine more than most people realize. The stuff that people were doing for thousands of years, let's say in India, that we didn't technically have proof of until recently because of modern technology. Like even epigenetics, like basically it's been proven that because of possible stresses or life experiences or things that have happened to your parents can actually have an effect on the child. And even how personality changes. Like literally, if a woman is more stressed when they're pregnant, the baby's cortisol levels get risen, and naturally the baby will probably end up coming out more stressful, more angry, more whatever. Like there is proof of that stressful, dangerous situations and circumstances just in someone else's life can bring that out. Like there is something, even when it comes to addiction being almost genetic, there is stuff to that. There is things along even depression. Like some of it is just unique to the person, but there are things that are actually more overlying than people realized 20 years ago when it comes to even your ancestry on like how you look at things or how you feel about things or your personality or your reactions. And it's like apparently things like that were talked about in a different way and like ancient guru teachings and stuff, but it basically has gotten proven with modern science. It's like, man, they kind of broke this down in a different way 1,000 years ago, and it just wasn't well known.
They've done studies too. It's like the more you're stressed, the more your body just like represents like you're getting
like sick. Like it,
it's
it
not
has
sick though. I'm looking for another word, but
it basically just, like, it almost has more
effect on your body.
Yes, more wear and tear on your body physically. Yep. But then at the same time, naturally adding stress, like working out, cold showers, saunas, doing things like that, fasting, those different forms of stress that you can actually bring onto your body strengthen it. But the more mental side of things or other things, like your mindset has such a stronger impact on your well-being than I think a lot of people realize. And it a lot of that stuff just gets so overlooked. I think some people are definitely more aware of it now than they ever used to be, but it's still something that's like, I wish more people understood that and actually took that to heart in certain aspects.
It's true.
Now I got you thinking.
You do.
See, I'm not always crazy.
No, we're just weird.
We're weird. We are weird.
But we're weird.
Hey, there's something to that too.
Yeah.
I think there's something to living your life almost younger that like almost brings more youthfulness to you. Even if you live your life as if you were still 20, you will probably feel a lot better. Like just in general, like
100%.
If you live youthfully, you will feel youthful.
Mm-hmm.
At least more than the average person. Like there is something to that. Like even having a purpose, having fun, just if you become a stuck in the mud guy because of past events, like it's
I'm gonna say, like, me personally, I'm gonna be like 30, but I'm gonna be like a kid by heart. I'm gonna be like 12.
Yeah
100%.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is like I want to grow up, but at the same time it's like I don't, like mentally it's like I want to keep
it's a scary
aspects.
feeling.
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm always gonna be like, man, I wish I just couldn't go back so I can do this better. But,
yeah,
I mean,
but that's everybody.
Of course,
like,
yeah.
That's
everybody.
It's a part of life that you can never escape.
Exactly, and all you can do is just move on and fix those mistakes you made.
Yeah, and learn from them as best
Mhm.
as you can, and actually have some self-awareness and self-recognition on things, and try to learn from mistakes, events, trauma, whatever it is.
Yep.
And don't let it bog you down. Not saying that things aren't hard for some people, because they really are, but you can work through things. And I
just lift your head.
Yeah,
You got
I think a lot of people forget that they have more control over themselves and their lives than they realize.
I mean, like, just going back to being mental, like, your brain literally controls you way more than people think. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Like, you can literally tear yourself down just mentally breaking yourself down, you know?
Like, I mean, I even heard someone talk that they at this point kind of identify themselves in their cortisol state of being like, oh, this is your cortisol personality, this is my like stress, this isn't normal you, like this, like it is just chemicals in your head that are affecting the way you feel or about certain situations or whatnot. Like even a few weeks ago, it's like the lack of sleep I had that week, I could tell was having a way major impact on my mental health than I realized. And that was like that next day I got tons of sleep, and just in general I felt so much better. And there's things that you can do physically for your body or mentally that has such an impact that just doesn't get utilized most of the time. It's like, like just literally just even a couple of hours less sleep racked up over a week can completely change your point of view, your mood, how you feel, your reactions to so many things.
Of course, everybody's different, but like just like spending time with friends.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, just playing a game or something, or actually being by yourself and just listening to music or something. Yeah. Like, it just switches your mood so fast.
Like, I think more people need to actually understand themselves better on like what are ways to possibly lift your own spirits, because you can change your mood. There's ways to do it. Like if you're having a bad day, do something you love. Like have that time, listen to music, whatever, because those little things can honestly change your mood so easily.
I feel like nowadays, though, kind of just going to a different point of view, I guess. Yeah. But I feel like nowadays, just like kids growing up that always they always try to be somebody else and not themselves. Like just growing up, like honestly, I was one of those kids. I was always jealous of somebody, and I was always just like mad at my body or just my voice. For instance, I hated my voice when I was growing up. Yeah. I mean, I think every kid does though.
I think so. Yeah, I think some of those things are very universal, but you gotta. At one point, you do just have to be. You have to have that self-recognition in yourself when it comes to those things, and like understand that like almost subsiding your own emotions, your own personality is just not, it's not great. Like it has such an effect on you that you don't realize you should be yourself as much as you can. You should be authentic. You should be genuine.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people try to have a fake facade.
I feel like a lot of
things.
people have two sides.
Yeah. Like I can't say that there's, in some aspects, even when we come on here, that I'm not sometimes like a little more reserved than I might be normally. But at the same time, it's not like I'm subsiding my personality where
It's not like you're crazy or something, you
no,
know?
no. but like on like in high school is like, yeah, there's definitely times I wasn't as goofy or weird or funky as I was because I made myself think that was bad.
I mean, I
But
made
it's like,
myself
that's me.
talk more. I was actually very quiet when I was a kid.
You were very quiet.
I don't know.
Yeah, you have definitely become more yourself. Like it's very apparent.
It's from just my senior year.
Yeah,
now
even,
this year,
even a year,
I've grown
year and a half ago.
I've grown so much.
Yeah.
I really have.
You have. I mean, knowing you as a kid and as a teenager, you were very quiet. You
Very quiet and awkward kid.
weren't very outgoing, and I feel like some of that might have subconsciously been like fear of judgment.
I was. I honestly tried to just living somebody else's life.
And I think a lot of teenagers do that, and they think that they'll never be able to come out of it, but you can.
Did you?
You really can. Yeah. I mean, not majorly, but I definitely dumbed it down. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I tried to be a different person as much as other people did, but because of how other people reacted, I definitely limited myself because I felt like I would get judgment, ridiculed, things along those
See,
lines.
it was either like two things. Either I try to be somebody else, or I literally try to make myself literally do the perfect thing like 24/7, and that's what like destroyed me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm not the best at everything, you know. Nobody is.
And honestly, like me and Bailey's even talked about it on other conversations when it comes to, I mean, even recently, like honestly, I haven't been, like we've talked about this and this has been a slight topic of discussion in the past, so sorry if anybody has heard it, but like at this point, I'm pretty aware that I probably have ADHD. Not saying it's a dampener on myself or anything. Like I'm not going to go to a doctor. I'm not going to get on prescriptions. I'm not going to do any of that. But
honestly, I think everybody has a little ADHD in them. Honestly.
Well, that was the thing that me and Bailey talked about is even like nowadays, like anxiety, depression, ADHD is probably more over prescribed than it ever has been in the past. Not saying that some of these characteristics literally in the population like might be more apparent because of environmental factors, other things. So it's not saying that it's not real, but I do think a lot of people do try slapping a label on themselves, like, and like literally so many people are prescribed Adderall right now that there's literally an Adderall shortage.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
And in all reality, I can't remember what it is, but the number of prescriptions for Adderall in the past couple of years has gone up so much, and it's like, does that many people actually have like ADHD, a need? Like, do they actually deal with these things? Are these people actually clinically depressed in certain instances, or do they just feel bad? And I don't think people are just too gun-ho to give themselves almost a way out of being like, this is why my life sucks. This is why whatever. And because I'm depressed, this is why I can't do things. Or I have ADHD, this is why I'm failing at school. And not saying some people that have ADHD don't struggle with that and stuff. But
I mean, 100%.
But it's like, just because you have, like, that was the thing me and Bailey talked about is like, if you list some of the characteristics for ADHD and you just ask somebody, oh, do you feel this way? Or has this happened? Or have you done this? Even like you and me had talked a little bit. It's like, I feel like a lot of people would be like, yeah, I've done that before. Or I've whatever. But it's like, okay, you also got to look at it of like, how frequently does this happen?
How often is this?
Like,
is it once in a month?
Yeah.
Or is it once every
week?
day?
Or is this something that happens hourly? Like,
yeah.
How often do these kind of things happen?
I mean, there's just different, levels.
Yeah.
There's different levels.
And so it's like, just because it might happen to you reasonably frequently doesn't still mean that you actually have this. Like, and that's where I'm like, I'm at least glad that the few resources I've used to kind of come to that conclusion with myself wasn't just some random person on TikTok that was like, I have ADHD, and if these are characteristics, maybe you have it. It was like the things I'd listened to that described it were literally psychologists that have studied ADHD symptoms and people with ADHD for 30, 40 years. So I was like, it wasn't just some Joe Blow on TikTok. It was actually someone that studies this, listing characteristics that they've seen probably with thousands of patients. And I'm like, that's very accurate. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, so I'm not just getting information from anybody and be like, yeah, I got it. Like, it's like, I'm not that.
Oh, I'm this one thing out of 5. I know it. Man, I'm
yeah.
ADHD.
I'm not
I'm
that,
OCD, guys. Give
I'm
me
not
pills.
that vague. Like, that's the thing, is like some of the list of characteristics they list off, I'm like, they basically hit the nail on every single one.
Yeah. You showed
like,
me a few videos like, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I'm like, I do that.
The thing is, I do some of that too, though.
Yeah.
So like,
it like we really even talked. I was like, I think some of those characteristics in certain aspects, at least for ADHD, are definitely probably more common with a guy. But at the same time, that doesn't also mean every guy has ADHD.
right.
And so it's just it's an interesting thing. But it's like, even that, like, kind of understanding that more about myself and being like, oh, maybe the reason I act this way, and some people might be thrown off by it, isn't necessarily my personality, but like even like, let's just, for example, this has definitely happened when like you, me, Kelvin, Freddie, Josh, or somebody have like all been together and we've been talking, and then just like how every once in a while like something pops into my head and I bring up something or say something and people are like,
and then all three of us just like, what?
Yeah, it's like, to me, I always thought that was just, I don't know, it was just something else. And I understood that was me, but I didn't realize that like everybody else doesn't think that way. That's not how everybody else's brain works. But
I
for
mean,
some
everybody
reason,
does. Everybody does think different.
Yeah,
Really.
it is like, for that, and then realizing like, oh, that might just be ADHD. This isn't how everybody looks at things. So that's why even with my friends, every once in a while I get weird glances.
You are very random sometimes.
That's normal. That's what's going on in my head. That's what's popping up. I might be distracted by a conversation, and the next thing I know, something pops into my head. I was like, oh, like, did you guys know this or what? And they're what? And it's
have
like,
you guys tried like Chips Ahoy or something like that? I was like, what the fuck?
You're like, where did that come from? Like, that wasn't a part of the conversation. It wasn't whatever. But it's like, that's for me. That's how my brain works.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I thought that's how most people's brain works. And I think there was a point in time I didn't realize it. But even in high school, when I tried to almost subdue my own personality, it was because I realized I was slightly different, because I noticed not everybody else thinks or acts that way. And I was like, maybe I'm just a little weird. In all reality, it's just like, no, my how my brain works for some people just is not anywhere close to possibly the average person because of ADHD.
Yeah, I see. I was the quiet kid, but I like low key was kind of like cocky in a way. Like, I always like just held my head high, and I felt so bad, like, looking back now, because like honestly, I have changed so much since my freshman and junior year. I mean, everybody does though, but
so you just gotta,
honestly, time is a very important factor. Like, just take time and develop like what you think yourself is, you know.
Yeah, it is fun to like have those kind of conversations when it comes to like how my brain works in general with Bailey, because like there's no one else that probably knows me better than my own sister.
I mean, yeah.
And so
you guys literally did everything together.
So it's like, when we talk about this, she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I thought that was normal. And she's like, no.
No, honestly, you and Bailey are literally probably, just like looking back, out of all the friends that are like siblings with each other, you guys probably have the strongest connection, just because of all the shit you guys been through. And I mean, you guys moved so many times, and just like, you guys were always beside each other. Even if you were mad, you were still there. You couldn't do much.
Yeah. You're very right. I think I'm very grateful for that. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, honestly, I kind of hope, and I was like, hopefully this was through text messages. I was like, I hope this doesn't come off kind of weird, but I was like, I kind of hope I have a similar relationship with my future wife as I do with my sister. Cause
I can see what you mean. Yeah.
We're
Like even when she went to college, I mean, it is totally different when Noah went to college because I mean, fuck, he was 3 hours off and fucking
2,000 miles away.
Yeah, but like you guys are still just as close as when she left.
Yeah, I would like to look through our phone records because there's definitely been weeks that I've probably literally been on the phone with my sister for like possibly 10 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like most people probably be like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, like we could just talk. Like for me that doesn't seem super abnormal. But then at the same time, there might be something where it's like, oh, we might have a week where we don't really talk. But it doesn't mean it. Like
exactly. I mean, everybody lives a different life.
Yeah.
So.
And that's even something where like for some people, which is it's kind of bad because I'm like an overthinker, but then also like ADHD brain with stuff and like some things that people have talked about is like, oh yeah, you might not even remember your friends exist. They might be like, oh, that's like I must be mad, and it's like no. For me, it's like sometimes I either forgot to message you or just hadn't seen you, didn't pop into my head, or you text me and I didn't respond because maybe I responded to my head and didn't send the text message, or I read it, or like I get sidetracked, and the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I didn't respond to that, and that was like 4 hours ago. Like so there's something along those lines, and you just I end up a little scrambled every once in a while, but honestly, I this was a good conversation.
This was
the past 2 episodes I've actually been very pleased with because it just
we've definitely not winged it.
No,
definitely not.
We definitely have come into the past couple episodes with like a few things that we wanted to touch on, but ended up just having.
Well, I mean, this whole conversation was not planned.
No,
like, at all.
Not at all. It just happens.
So, yeah.
But, this was something I did want to bring up. Kind of doing with last week's episode. So, I don't know if I knew this when we talked about it, or if I did, I forgot. But did you know for like the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight that at one point Jake Paul did speak ill and say something about Mike Tyson's deceased daughter?
No, he didn't. What the fuck did he say?
I don't actually like know word for word, but you want to know what's surprising? Is my dad was the one that told me about it. And then I did see something else, and it's like, yeah, that's. I mean,
he's the trouble child, so.
Yeah, that's crossing a line, because she died very young, and
I know what happened. Yeah,
it's.
I don't know.
And some people are even saying that because of that, Mike Tyson isn't going to hold back.
I hope he doesn't. If that's true, I really hope he doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's. You don't mess with someone's kids.
You don't. No. You don't mess with somebody's family member.
No, not like
don't.
Not something that touchy. Like, you can trash talk, you can do whatever to that person, but when you get other people involved,
there's a thin line. Yes. And he definitely stepped over that.
Yeah, and people have even talked that even like I've listened and seen clips of like Mike Tyson talking, and he's like, I don't like the person I become when I fight, but he's like, he's literally almost like gotten to tears, being like, I'm actually scared of that person, and because
I mean, definitely like over the years since he retired and all that, he's definitely lightened up. But now since I've been seeing these videos,
he's been able to basically control it.
Yeah, but like I feel like now since I've been seeing these videos, like literally I can see the same look. Like he's literally just beating the shit out of this fucking bag,
heavy bag.
Yeah, and literally his eyes are just literally just concentrated on one thing and one thing.
I think that's where like I've heard and seen somebody talk where they're like, him doing that, you're gonna get a different Tyson than what you were probably initially gonna be fighting, because him saying something like that, you just unlocked a whole new gate of hell from Tyson. Like he is there is something in that man that even with how he talks, he is not himself when he gets in that state. Like it's almost like an out of body experience where it's what is that called? It's like and there is a almost like a word for it when it comes to even war. It's like blood drunk, like where it's been talked about in history. I think it not bloodthirsty necessarily, but there is something where
I guess bloodthirsty is more like killing.
Yeah, but there is something where it's like some people in war almost lose themselves and like turn into animals and just become killing machines, and that's happened in history, and it's actually a well-known thing where it's like there is the thing almost in the human existence where it's like, yeah, we're very civilized, we can sit down here, we can have a cup of coffee and chill on our laptops and write a paper,
Here's a cup of tea.
but there is something so primitive that some people unlock because of certain circumstances that you don't normally see, and when it does come out, it is scary. It honestly is.
Honestly, after you saying that does scare me.
Yeah, like
that scares me for Jake, even though I really don't like Jake that well.
But it honestly is kind of horrifying, the real animalistic nature of man, because when it comes down to it, we can be very gruesome and ruthless. And I think
just look at our history in the past.
Yeah, and I think some people don't heed history enough to understand that, because society has almost like dumbed that down and covered it up. But it's like there is something to human beings where I don't think you understand how crazy we can be. We can be just as ruthless as a tiger that rips a baby in half in front of its mother. Like that's in us, and I don't think people understand that a lot of times. And that's where, like, even when it comes to fighters or like saying certain things, it's like you don't want to get somebody to that point, because there's something about that. And so now that information, and just in general, like I was already like kind of wanting to watch the fight, but now I'm actually like very, very more intrigued of being like, okay, like I'm at this point I'm 100% cheering for Tyson, and I'm also just curious to see how he performs. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, buddy, you kind of deserve to get out any built-up anger that you might not have been able to release even in the past 40 years since retirement.
That is true.
And I feel like we might actually see that side of Mike again, because even in like his last fight with who was that?
I don't even
but
know.
It was like an exposition fight. They're both older boxers. Like I'm blanking on who it was, but it's like even that, it was like it was a fight, but it wasn't Tyson in the 20s, like in his 20s. No. Like it was not the same animal. And I think this fight, because of
honestly
Jake's arrogance, is gonna bring it out of him, and we might actually see
if he keeps shit talking like that. 100%.
Yeah, we might see a form of Mike Tyson that we have not seen in a long time. It will be very intriguing. But well, wow. I think we should call it there.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, I think that's a good stopping place.
I think so. Well, I do hope everybody enjoyed kind of being the fly on the wall to this conversation. And honestly, it was pretty fun. Started out with conspiracy theories and it ended up very deep, but I liked it. It was a lot of fun.
Conspiracy theories to mental health.
Yeah.
To
gratitude.
Yeah.
War. A lot of things. Man, this was fun, actually.
This is a good episode.
Yeah. So if you guys do listen and you made it this part,
I'm proud of us.
Please like and subscribe. Nice. But I hope you guys all have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully we have a guest on next week if everything works out.
Yeah, cross your fingers.
Yeah. Well, we still got to confirm confirmation with the guest.
Possible guest.
Yeah, but check us out on any social media, and hopefully we start posting some more stuff for you guys.
Yes, sir.
We'll see you guys all later.
Peace out.
Peace out.